Welcome, everybody. I'm Greg Stanley. I'm here with Wes Warren. We're from Whitehall Management. Today, we'd like to talk a little about the problems that doctors face as they attempt to get out of insurance plans. Wes, what have you learned about that?
So there's two types of practices that we quickly try to identify. And so if you're listening, if you've got multiple doctors that you're trying to get patients to, obviously we probably would not suggest that the entire practice get out of network. Usually it would be the owner doctor would be the one that we would be moving out of network with. And so trying to supply vast numbers of patient flow to a bunch of doctors is challenging enough. And then when you handcuff that practice with no participation, it can be a death blow. So be careful if you're going that route or you already have associates. So if your dream is to have associates, probably not the thing I would go running after is getting out of network, because really you need to build up a patient following. So first, that's just my first caveat, but as far as getting out of network, the things I quickly look at is capacity. How booked out are we? So first thing would be hygiene. How far is hygiene booked out? If hygiene is booked out forever and a day, and what does that mean? I would say hygiene being booked out around 3 months or further, and it's sure it might fall apart day of. That's a different problem. But when you look at the schedule and it's booked out and it's hard to find a spot for 3 months, that's one indicator, Greg. The other indicator is your own schedule. What's that look like? And I'd like to see it pretty well booked up for about 3 weeks. Meaning you're demonstrating that you've got good case acceptance, that your case acceptance is and your practice is so full that literally patients are stacking up for treatment. You're not able to get them in. If you're booking people out a week for your dentistry, that's not an indication that you're ready for moving out of network. So capacity is the big thing. So one thing we always do with a lot of our clients is look at the beginning of the month. How booked up is the month compared to the goal? Let's say the goal is 100,000 for August. We're in August. Let's say August 1st, you looked at it and your goal is 100,000 and you're at 50,000. That would probably be fairly normal, but it's not an indication that you've built up so much demand that you can start pulling out of insurance. You'd probably want to be more at like 70%, 80% of goal when you enter the month. These are all indications that your practice is ready to move out of network. Those are things we look at. The other thing would be case acceptance on new patients, especially marketing patients if you're doing marketing. And really take a look at how you're doing in getting new patients to actually accept dentistry. Because you got to remember, getting out of network, you're going to lose approximately half of the people. And so you got to be able to replenish them. And you've got to make sure that you're marketing, that you're able to convert. We want to see at least 50, 60% of new patients, probably more like 60% of new patients move forward with some dentistry. So just take a look at last month, pull out the marketing patients, people that found you on Google. These are not direct referrals, and see how you did on those people. And you should see at least 50, 60% move forward with dentistry. Because the one thing I want you to remember, getting out of network is not entirely free. You're going to have to ramp up a little bit of a marketing element. So the money you do save in being out of network, you're going to have to reinvest some of it into marketing. Usually not a ton. It's not a huge investment, but you have to be trying to regain the patients you're going to lose. So we typically look at insurance this way, where we start with somewhere at 10% of the practice base or less, as far as a plan that we look to eliminate as we start, Greg. So let's say the practice has 1,000 patients that we're seeing over the last 18 months. We would look for a plan that has around 100 patients, right? And we would obviously write the letter. It takes 90 days to get out. And we know that we're going to have to replace 50 patients and that we're probably going to retain 50. So I can just tell you, you're going to have to do that over a 6-month or a year period. Let's plan on a year. We've got to market in an extra 5 new patients a month, probably a little more than that because of case acceptance and people not. So you got to plan on around 8 more new patients a month. That's going to cost you, well, upwards of $1,000 a month. So getting out of network is not entirely free. And that's how we do it. That's basically how it's done. And we evaluate our results after we pull out of one plan and we see how we did. We look at how many people called, how many patients came, and hygiene. We look at specifically our case acceptance, those patients with insurance plans, to see if we're still getting relatively similar case acceptance. And then if we can, we look at how we're doing on the phone in terms of converting new patient callers when we're out of network. Okay, so this is another thing that really has to be worked on. As far as if you're going to get out of network, you got to get really good at convincing patients that are out of network to still come to your office. And if we don't work on this with the front desk and how to answer that question, you can be in trouble. Let's just put it that way. You can't replenish the people you're losing because your front desk is unable to actually convert the callers that have insurance. And now that you're out of network, they really aren't prepared to convert those patients.
Let's look at a couple of unusual situations. First of all, when the internet really came on the scene and our websites told people clearly, what we stand for and what we won't stand for, the insurance we'll take, insurance we won't take. There was phone calls that came from that we never got, meaning at one time we could have talked to a staff person, she would have said, yeah, I got 10 calls this week from people wanting to know if I was in their insurance. Well, now that it's on the website, we don't get those calls. Not every time, but
Sure.
those people just look and say, well, I'll go on to where it's free. And here's something you need to keep in mind, I think. When these insurances discount deeper, and even deeper, they finally end up with it feeling just like a public clinic. I mean, you're lucky if you get anesthetic. You're lucky if you get the good staff, if you get anything worth bragging about. Dentistry is going to be noticeably underfinanced in offices that are paid for by those insurance plans. Because, even if you say, okay, they pay 60% of a crown, that's their definition. What they pay for a crown is maybe half what you're paying. So it's 60% of half, In other words, the soup can get very thin, doesn't bother them a bit. Patients want to believe them since they keep saying, oh, no, we got doctors, we have good doctors. So make sure that when people come in contact with your staff, that they're treated with great respect, charm, building relationships, all of that, working to be helpful. Because remember, some of those patients will call back and go, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go where my insurance pays for it because it's not in a nice part of town, or they're not nice people.
You'll get some of them back, just like you're saying. So people will leave, try a different dentist, and 6 months later, they'll call you back and say, please, so that does happen. But I think it's a good point here, Greg, that your game has to go up. In other words, being in network can cover up a lot of sins. How the phone is answered, how sloppy we bring people in, wait times, all these things, treatment coordinator, the doctor's case presentation. If insurance covers a large part of it and there's a discount, all of a sudden everything is fine. All these little mistakes get covered over. But as soon as you're out of network and patients are paying essentially double, all of a sudden their willingness to follow through with treatment goes way down. So case acceptance can be a huge challenge. So really there's, I would say, 2 challenges. One, getting them through the door, knowing how to convince a patient that's out of network to actually come to your practice. And number two, once they see the sticker shock, of them actually following through with your treatment plan, that's the other trick. Remember, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, maybe I should have went to somebody that was a network. This is quite a lot of money. I probably should go somewhere in network. That's what's going to happen in their mind. So you got to overcome all of this to be out of network and to move your practice. And it absolutely can be done, but we take it in little chunks in the beginning and test the systems of the practice to make sure that you're getting good case acceptance, that we're getting these types of these patients through the door with this insurance plan, that everything checks out, and then we can move a little faster getting out of network. So take it easy, test one, and see, and really keep careful track of how you guys do with those patients.
Right. A lot of people aren't even counted as lost until they don't show up for their regular hygiene visit. You sent them the letter 5 months ago, but it's when they don't show up for that visit.
Yeah, so what you do, Greg, this is a good point, and I didn't cover this, is you look at who is due in the month when the cutoff is. Let's say 90 days from now, we're looking at October 1st as being their first month out of network. We would look at all the patients that are scheduled in October, November, and December and see how many of them show up that have that insurance plan. And so, like I said, we're talking about 10% of the patient base or less. And we would actually calculate how we did.
These people
like
have
I
to
said,
be tracked.
yeah,
Because
absolutely got to be tracked.
we've learned that you got to consider how many of them are actually moving out of the area, out of state. You can think they're still there and they're not. Even if you stay in network, you can still have a pretty good sized turnover. Something I've encountered so often, Wes, it's very sad. And that is, as a doctor is in his or her space, maybe 20, 30 years, and they haven't renewed their equipment and the carpet and all of that. Everything's out of date, run down, kind of busted. Of the 5 ops, 3 of them work. You know how that works. What happens a lot of times, those offices were built on real strong referrals. A lot of those referrals moved on, got older, died, whatever. And in their place, they should have been replaced by people now demanding insurance, meaning because this doctor thought, I'm a referral practice, I don't need to be in plans, his practice started slowly contracting on him, little by little, year over year, until he wakes up one day, hears our podcast and says, wow, I'd like an associate. That'd be great. I can't even keep myself busy. Well, when did that start? It started about 5 or 10 years ago, as you continually didn't get in plans and didn't up your game. You got to take your game up, like Wes said, if you're going to get out of plans. This place has to be run by incredibly sharp staff, attentive doctors. You got to know the ins and outs of marketing, how to fill it with good people, because you got a lot of Google reviews. In other words, there's a lot to it.
So I would say, Greg, if people are listening to this and it sounds good, one way or another, if you want to get out of network, or if you want to add associates, the answer is the same. You got to build up a backlog of patients, right? You've got to have demand for your services. If you're not booked out 2 or 3 weeks for dentistry, and your hygiene's not booked out at least 3 months, it's something you should talk to us about. You should actually get on the phone and talk to us about your situation, because getting to the bottom of it, it answers it brings all your dreams to fruition, is fixing that in the practice so that it is heavily demanded. And all of a sudden you can basically do what you want. You can decide to go out of plans, you can decide to bring on associates, but having a practice that's half full and you're struggling every day to hit your goal or every month, nothing's on the table that way. Nothing. Yeah, I would encourage you to jump on the phone and talk with us about that.
I agree, because the real question is are we delivering the goods? In other words, are we delivering a practice that can make it without insurance? Are we delivering a practice that can make it with marketing? There's all these tests, litmus tests for your practice. Can we have an associate? Can we get out of network? See, like I said, the creeping reality is a lot of people never got in network, always able to do it with referrals. Now they're surrounded by people that are demanding insurance because that's an increasing phenomenon. And so their practice is shrinking. And just when they need to be able to fill an associate doctor, they can see that's going to be hard to do. Now, something you said earlier, Wes, you said you might get out of network, the owner, but the associate's probably going to need something like that.
No doubt, no doubt.
So
Like I said, but the principle's the same. You got to get booked out a little bit. If you are not, it's an indication there's something wrong. It's an indicate you've been in practice for 15 years in the same location, and you're not booked out a couple, 3 weeks for dentistry. It's an indication that we're doing something that that's wrong, and insurance is kind of covering that up. If we took that insurance away, it'd be even worse, our problems. And so, yeah, I think it is an indication of something that might need to be fixed.
yeah, let's don't wait. Let's don't wait until your practice is shrunk to the point you can't sell it. You no longer think you could bring in an associate, and you can't live off what it pays you. That's like the worst of all positions. So get on the phone. Let's get that thing back in motion and hit your goals. That's the idea. Thanks for
Okay.
listening.
All right, thanks for listening.